Good morning, everybody. Amanda Waters from Carlsbad High School here for our National AD Zoom call. Thanks again for joining us today. And Ira Childress, my partner.
Ira Childress, Gulliver Prep, Miami, Florida here. We've been doing this Zoom call for 10 weeks. And for 10 weeks, we've been working to try to help athletic directors throughout the country, become better during this COVID pandemic. And we've had a lot of great guests on. Today we have a special guest who's a friend of mine and somebody that's really special in terms of having on this call, because I know we've had a lot of great guests on, but I don't think we've had a Super Bowl MVP, a former Heisman Trophy winner, and one of the lead analysts on ESPN College Game Day. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Desmond Howard. How you doing, Des?
Thank you for that wonderful and warm introduction. I appreciate it. Apologize for being tardy. I was having a little issue with my computer, but I have some live-in ITs that live with me that actually go to Gulliver. They were able to fix the problem, because if it wasn't for these little live-in ITs that I have around here, I would be lost when it comes to all this new technology. So I apologize for my tardiness, but thank you very much for the introduction. Thanks for letting me be a part of your meeting today.
Yeah, no, that's great, Des. And obviously we'll touch on a little bit of college football. I know people are, chomping at the bit for that, and that's great. But what I really wanted to have you on today is to talk about fitness and all the great things you're doing around that. I happened to jump onto your IG the other day, and I was blown away by all the great fitness things you were doing. You want to talk about that, Des?
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for giving me the opportunity. Actually, I was working out earlier, and so I took a shower, and then I got my protein shake. I got my post-workout protein shake here, so I may be sipping on that throughout the meeting. But yeah, health and fitness has always been very important to me. Even people I think the number one assumption is that it's of paramount importance to all professional athletes. But there's always a difference, you know what I mean? There's always a difference as far as who takes it how serious. Some athletes take their fitness more seriously than others, and some are legendary because of their workouts and then the production on the field or on the court or on the baseball diamond. So I was one of those guys that I always, I took my health and fitness very seriously. As an athlete, as a collegiate athlete, as a professional athlete. But then afterwards, Ira, what really struck me is once you retire and you have all this, free time on your hands and you don't have the structure that you had when you were playing, then it's really up to you to try to continue that same regiment, so to speak. And, I was okay with it. I was active. I would do things because I'm just an active person. But I really started to take my health and fitness seriously when I probably got into my late 30s, early 40s. I did you do a routine test, and when you're African American, you're more susceptible to certain diseases. High blood pressure, diabetes, and the list goes on and on. So I wanted to make sure that, I didn't have any of those problems as I grew older. And I knew my cholesterol numbers were getting kind of high, but that's because my diet was bad. I mean, listen, I absolutely love certain sweets. And I would not, deny myself of those luxuries in the food department. Now, I like Krispy Kreme donuts, right? It was at a point where I would eat a dozen in just one sitting, It's not like you really got to eat them because you put them in your mouth and they melt. They just dissolve. All you got to do is kind of just swallow them, right? And so, and they make it really easy for you. And I would eat like a dozen, you go to that Krispy Kreme and a hot now light is on, so you get those hot and they'll melt. But I understood, that, this type of eating was contributing to me having some numbers in some high numbers as far as the cholesterol is concerned. So I started to change my diet, And the more I started to research it, the more I started to look into it, I really became, because I always had a decent diet. Like I didn't eat pork, I didn't eat beef. So I thought, I was eating relatively healthy, but there were certain things, like I said, like some of the sweets and stuff, I had to not totally and completely eliminate, because I would never do that. But I think everything is fine if it's just if you don't overdo it, don't overindulge, so to speak. And so anyway, so I started to cut back on the sweets, and then I started to really, as I get closer to my to the age of 50, I started to really pay attention, because I would eat a Caesar salad. I love Caesar salad with chicken. I'm like, okay, we would travel around with game day. I would tell our ops guy, just find me a place that has a Caesar salad with chicken. That's good. They can't screw that up. You can't screw that up, right? You can't screw it up. So, make it easy on everybody. And then I would, but then I understood, like, as I started to really dig deep into it, that, like Caesar dressing, like it has a lot of calories in it. You know what I mean? So stuff like that. And so I started to like eat more like a Greek salad with chicken, because, the Greek dressing was a lighter dressing. It wasn't the heavy, white, creamy dressing like a Caesar dressing. So I just started to really change my habits, and then start to really take my my physical fitness really seriously and up to another level. And so as I hit 50, I have so many people saying, you're not 50. There's no way in the world you're 50. Like, stop lying, right? And like my producer said, listen, stop telling everybody that you're 50, because I know you're lying. You just tell everybody that so you can keep telling you look young, right? And so as I hit 50, because I have people on social media who follow me, and we interact, and they say, hey, what do you do? What do you drink? What do you eat? So I said, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna try to launch this campaign for my 50th birthday, where I would just start to share some of my secrets, some of my habits. And it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle, and I think that's the first and foremost thing that people need to understand. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. And so my hashtag 21 at 50 is to share with whoever's interested some of the secrets that I've had and that I use today, as far as trying to maintain, a healthy and fit lifestyle.
Thanks. That's great, Des. I know you had a smart thing page that you released yesterday as well. Can you give us those tips really quick? I know some of those things to really help our student athletes right now who are in this whole COVID thing, and they don't have access to gyms and things of that nature.
Yeah, well, so the SMART chart is an acronym, SMART, and what it boils down to is, when you're making decisions, you have to set goals. Like I'm a goal-oriented person. I believe in setting goals. And what that chart does is it can act as a guideline to assist you in whatever goal or whatever goals you want to set for yourself. So it talks about, make sure it's something that is specific. So make sure it's a specific goal. You don't have something in general. You want to make sure it's something you can obtain. I always say, make it challenging, make it hard on yourself. But that's what that chart is about. So it gives you, like I said, you can go on my Instagram page and you can see it. And it gives you like a guideline of how you should go about making these decisions when you're setting up and planning goals for yourself.
Great. Amanda, go ahead.
Thanks so much for joining us, Desmond. The age 50 comment ages everybody in the whole room, I think, because I remember watching you play. So as an elite athlete like yourself, obviously there's a lot going on for students and kids and, high school athletes. If you could give them any advice right now, and you could talk to all of our high school seniors or high school athletes, what would you say to them about this, what's happening, the situation they're in, and what they could do to possibly get the most out of it?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It really is, because this is something that is very unique and rare. We've never been in a situation like this before, and we're all trying to figure our way through it, as we go along. First, I would tell them that look at it as an athlete. You look at things as if they're challenges. You look at, this defense is a challenge. This offense is a challenge. This basketball team or whatever, your opponent is a challenge. So look at this like another challenge that you have to overcome. if you look at it as if it's your opponent, this COVID-19 pandemic quarantine situation is my challenger. Okay, how am I going to overcome this challenge? How am I going to defeat this challenge? First, you cannot let it defeat you mentally. That's where it starts. Mentally, you have to put yourself in the right frame of mind to be able to take on this challenge. So as a man thinketh, so is he. So you have to get in the right mind state, just like it is when you're going to battle, whether it's in the basketball game, a baseball game, football game. Anytime you're going to compete, you have to have the right mind state. So that's why I would tell them, look at this as if it's your competitor and it's a challenge, and then face it that way. Come up with new and creative ways to work out, to stay healthy. I tell you what, we had a coach. So we were doing the game day show during the draft, right? So we had Lincoln Riley, the head coach of Oklahoma, on the set. Well, via Zoom. And so the crazy thing is everyone's talking about, yeah, well, how you going to work out, how you going to stay in shape, how you going to condition, blah, blah, blah. And they're showing all these different ways that these athletes are, filling up a book bag with sand and put it on their back and doing squats or whatever. Very creative ways, which that's great. But I asked Lincoln Riley, I said, listen, when I travel around the country, go to these, magnificent facilities, athletic facilities, each facility has at least one, or some of them have two nutritionists on staff. And they have like a whole bar set up where the nutritionists, they will make sure that there's a smoothie or that there's a salad, or there's a plate, that there's something that's catered to each specific athlete and what his needs are. This is football, so I'm gonna say his needs, but it goes to women's sports too. So I said, what are you doing to make sure that your players are getting the proper nutrition, that they have the proper diet while we're going through this pandemic? That was a question no one had ever asked any of these coaches. I've watched all these shows. No one talks about nutrition. No one talks about diet. A lot of these kids, they're going back to their homes and, they're not in the best of neighborhoods. They're not in the best of areas. So they're not getting the best of meal choices, there's fast food and things of that nature. So now, not only are you getting a guy who, okay, maybe he tried to stay in shape, he tried to do some conditioning, but now you got the nutrition, the diet part on top of that, and that's over half the battle all the time when you're working out. So he said, Desmond, that's an excellent question, and that's something that we're really trying to address and meet head on right now. And he just started to say, what they can do because of the NCAA rules and what they can't do. And I think it's a big issue now. It's something that a lot of coaches, they have to contend with, because these guys are going home and now they're just subjected to what they normally eat, which is a lot of fast foods and things of that nature, not like the whole foods that they had access to when they're on college campuses. I'm talking about they get 3 square meals, but then after that, they get like snacks and things of that nature. And then all of this is monitored too. No more monitoring this stuff while they're at home. So that's another issue that I think these kids, they have to make sure that they stay on top of their diet and eat healthy too, because that's over half the battle when you're talking about training.
There's I know you have to go. We're not going to hold you long, but I got to ask you, I need you to talk about or tell the story. This is the greatest story, one of the greatest stories I've ever heard about the Heisman pose that was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Can you share that story real quick before you go?
Oh, yeah, that's no problem. It's my pleasure. So the summer before, that year, which was my senior year academically, but I was a junior on the field because I redshirted my freshman year. So, but before that year, I was training, off-season training. I was dating this girl who was a gymnast. So I wanted her to teach me how to do a backflip. I always thought it would be the coolest thing to like break out in the open and then, slow down like around the maybe 4 or 3 yard line going into the end zone, and then maybe stop at the 1 and do a backflip into the end zone. I always thought that'd be the coolest thing, right? So here I am, I'm scoring touchdowns every week. I'm a Heisman candidate. Then later in the season, I became the front runner, and a couple of my teammates, And they're like, hey, man, you got to do something. You can get an end zone. You know, come on, you got to do something. I'm like, man, nah, that's just not the Michigan way. Like the Michigan way was pretty much like do the Barry Sanders. You score a touchdown, hand the ball to the official, and you turn around and you celebrate with your teammates who helped to make it happen, right? So that's what I did every time I scored. And so now we're at the last game of the year. The last game is always the Ohio State game for Michigan. And being that I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, this is like a huge game for me. This is big. So, and I'm the front runner for the Heisman. And at this point, I believe that John Cooper was the head coach at Ohio State. I really do believe that his whole mindset going to that game was, listen, Desmond Howard cannot score a touchdown. If we can derail his Heisman campaign, we don't care if we lose this game by 50 points. If we can derail Desmond Howard's Heisman campaign, we will have a joyous bus ride back to Columbus from Ann Arbor. I think that was their mindset. Man, they were playing their safeties back so deep, like they were about to catch punts. Like you can tell they did not want me to score a touchdown. So I caught some passes and I, had some decent plays, but nothing big. So here we are now. They're about to punt the ball to us near midfield. And the general rule of thumb for a punt returner is if the team is around midfield, you put your heels on the 10-yard line. And if the ball appears to be traveling over your head, you never step back to catch it. You just let it go over your head, and hopefully it'll bounce into the end zone, and then the offense will start at the 20-yard line. But I'm a competitor. I got like this burning fire in my stomach, man, when it comes to competing. And I was kind of pissed because I really couldn't get any big playoffs. I'm like, man, so they're punting up my heels on the 10, and the ball is in the air. And I'm like, it looks like it's about to travel over my head. Damn. I said, you know what? All right, I'm going to retreat and catch it. So I took a couple steps back, and now I'm inside the 10-yard line, and I catch the ball. So as I catch that ball now I'm vested into making something happen now. Something has to happen, because if I get tackled anywhere inside the 20, my head coach, Gary Moeller, is going to be pissed. So I'm like, okay, I at least got to make these first guys miss and get at least to the 21. So I make the first wave miss, which any punt returner should be able to do. And then I saw the second wave coming, and I kind of made those guys miss, and I broke to my left, which was Ohio State sideline. And as I'm starting to break to my left, I see their punter. So as I see their punter, I square him up, and I'm thinking, okay, am I going to do this backflip or not? Because there ain't no way in hell this guy about to tackle me. So I kid you not. As I'm running down the sideline, I'm going down Ohio State sideline, and I'm wrestling with myself in my mind. Should I do the backflip? Nah, don't do the backflip. Are you ready for it? Yeah, you can do it. Come on, do the backflip. Nah, if you mess it up, you'll be on SportsCenter for the wrong thing. Don't do it. So I ended up talking myself out of doing the backflip by the time I got into inside the 10-yard line. So I got inside the 10, and I crossed the 5. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? I got to do something. And then as I crossed the goal line, I said, oh, well, screw it. And I did the pose. And so pretty much the pose, and it was very spontaneous. And I never thought I would do that. I never even thought about doing it. I never practiced it. But it was like a spontaneous reaction to me chickening out, because I chickened out from doing that backflip.
That's great. Des, we'll get you out of here on this. Do you believe that there will be a college football season? Obviously, I know us as high school athletic directors, we're kind of leaning on that, hoping, that will give us some direction, for us.
Yeah, it just seems like everything is trending right now in that direction. I don't know exactly how they're going to pull it off, but if I was a betting man, I would say with or without fans in the stands, there will be a college football season. I don't know if it's going to be delayed at all. But the one issue that I think you have to pay attention to that people aren't talking about, I did get up a week ago, and it was the first time it was ever mentioned on air that I've seen, was the situation with parents, like the role that parents are going to play in this decision-making process. Every time I hear someone talk about it, they say, hey, I spoke to this head coach, or I spoke to this athletic director, or I spoke to this conference commissioner, and this is where they are, boom, 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 and I spoke to this player. But I've never heard anybody talk about I spoke to this player's parents, or I spoke to some parents. And I think that they need to start paying attention to that aspect of it. So I brought it up last week on Get Up. And now you start to see that take some traction, because there are some parents out there who aren't on board with having their kids play based on what they know so far. So the selling point isn't going to come from the administration to the player. The selling point, in my opinion, is going to come from the administration to the parents. You're going to have to listen. My father, JD, had the utmost respect for Bo Schembechler and Gary Moeller, the head coaches I had when I was in Michigan, the utmost respect. And he would defer to them on certain decisions, right? But never would it be a decision that involves the safety or health of his son. That would be a decision that he would always make. He would never defer to anybody. There are a lot of parents out there who think that same exact way. So they're going to have to be very comfortable with whatever protocol that this administration put in place to protect their kids and let them know, okay, this is safe. So keep an eye on that one.
Des, a Super Bowl MVP, Heisman Trophy winner, and one of the best analysts on TV, ESPN College Game Day. That's Desmond Howard, ladies and gentlemen. Des, thank you for joining us. We appreciate having you on, and everybody's going to go to your Instagram to learn to get in shape. I know I'm going to go there because I needed all the tips that you gave out today.
No problem. Thank you. And stay safe. I really appreciate you guys, and best of luck, too. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Des.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Our next guest is another friend of mine, a guy that I've known for a long time and has been a mentor to me in this athletic director world. We go way back, and now he's a big shot, and he's an athletic director at Texas A&M, and one of the best. I guess I can still call him young. One of the best young athletic directors in the country, Mr. Ross Borg. Ross, how are you?
Ira, greetings. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Great to see you.
Great to see you again, my friend. I really want to start with, from a COVID-19 standpoint, how are you getting your staff through this? I know we've, a few months into it now. How is that going? And what advice would you give as we work through this with our staff?
Great. I appreciate the question and the perspective, and just want to say thanks to everyone on here for being the leader that you are and pouring into young people. And the reason why we all have jobs are because of our student athletes, and you guys are doing it at a much younger age, and we receive, I guess, the product of what you all develop, and for that we're grateful. I have a son who's going into 9th grade, and every day he plays football, plays wide receiver, and he's working out, and he's getting texts from his coach, and just that engagement, because he won't listen to dad. I mean, dad knows nothing about anything related to athletics. And so I'm glad that his coach is encouraging him during this time, and I know all of you are doing the same thing. And so here's what we've tried to do. It's hard to believe that if I use March 11th as sort of the date, where all of this really kind of sunk in for all of us, even though we had conversations on our campus at the end of January, because we had a potential case on our campus from a faculty member who had been to Wuhan, China, and he had come back and had some symptoms, and that created some news. And we were having an indoor track meet that weekend, 2 basketball games, and all the visiting teams were like, hey, is it safe to come to College Station? So we had actually had this conversation going on our campus since late January, but really March 11th. So now you think about it, this is week 11. It's hard to believe. And so the approach that we've taken in all of this is we've tried to be informed and we've tried to be organized, and really just take those 2 things and apply it to everything that we do. We are not health experts by any means. Maybe some of you have an athletic training background. I certainly don't, but we had to turn in to thinking like health experts, not just athletic directors and not just coaches. We had to think differently about this. And by thinking differently, that meant we had to gather as much information and rely on people that normally we may not have relied upon to do this. And so that's how we've taken the approach, informed and organized, and then it's gone in phases. First couple weeks, excuse me, we're about triage, right? You're triaging everything. You're trying to figure out, how do we cancel this? How do we move this? How do we decompress this? How do we mobilize, our staff into virtual, online classing? So it's more about triage at that point. Then it was about, gathering information for any sort of normalcy, whatever normalcy would look like for the time being. And then I think then it was about, being organized for the future. And then the fourth step is the future. What does the future look like, and how do we start to reopen? So that's, I think, the layers that have gone on in this. And then I think it's very important that I am transparent with our staff about the realities of where things stand. I mean, people think, well, you're Texas A&M, you're immune to the financial, perhaps casualties of this. No, we're not. That's not the case. Texas A&M is not immune. No one is immune to this financially. And so we've tried to be really, really transparent about three things. First, financial, not necessarily in this order, but financial, about return to activity. What does that look like? And then the third thing is just normal operations. By the way, we still want to win games. We still want to fundraise. We have to deal with name, image, likeness. We have to deal with the transfer environment. So there's still normal work that has to take place on our campus. And so those are kind of the three buckets that we've tried to be just really honest with people and really transparent. And so those are some of the approaches, Ira, that we've taken as we've gone into this.
Thank you. Amanda, go ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Ross, for joining us. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
it. As a leader, one of the biggest leaders in our profession at the collegiate level, what do you suggest as high school ADs that we could do to help? We try to connect with our student athletes and try to give them and focus on the positives, right? Because it's a lot of the unknown. And so could you give any advice to them, if they were all listening right now, what would you say to them about how to handle this situation, what they can take out of it, and possible advice for the next steps? Like if they do want to go to college, obviously right now everything's kind of shut down, but there are things they can do. So what advice would you give them?
I would say that we need to control what we can control right now, and look at these as opportunities, not just the difficulty of the challenge. Yes, you have to deal in reality, and I just talked about being transparent around the realities of what we're facing, but also look at these as opportunities. Within a challenge is always an opportunity. And how are we looking forward? How are we connecting? I mean, I would have never spoken to all of you, right, unless we were shut down like this. That platform would not have been available. And so what type of platforms are available now in this world that weren't available, 77 days ago, right? We have to think of it that way. We have to think in a positive manner. And that's a choice. That is a choice that we have. And so the choice, we get to decide. We get to decide what we can control, and we get to decide the choice around our attitude. And that's what I would tell young people every day is we get to decide how we deal with this. We don't have to watch the news. We don't have to hear all the other stuff. What's in front of us? What do we have to deal with? How do we choose to address it? How do we choose to have a positive attitude or not? And that'll make us come out of the other side. Are there financial realities? Is there home life? Is there of course, there's all those things that we all have to deal with. But the attitude choice, I think, is the biggest thing. And then you look at the next step. Recruiting has become, I think, even more. There's more touch points around recruiting now. I'm in talking to our coaches. they're doing all these virtual unofficial visits now. Again, that would have never happened. There was a cost to unofficial visits for the student athlete. There was time commit. Like now we're able to do those things in 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, whatever the time commitment is. And we didn't have that before. And so I think you'll see some new opportunities for student athletes that maybe they didn't have before because of the technology that we're in. I hate the fact that universities are cutting sports. I hate that because that's missed opportunities. But is there other opportunities in this world that we need to look at around, you know, technology and access and things like that? So I think we need to encourage our young people about what's out there in this world that is positive.
Ross, we'll get you out of here on this. Two-part question. One, you know, as we preparing for the fall, you know, what advice would you give all of us are putting plans in place and trying to be as detailed as possible, you know, with those plans and guidelines, you know, as we prepare for the fall, potential fall sports? And the second part of that is, do you believe, you know, even at your level that there will be sports in the fall?
We believe, I'll take the second question first. We believe there will be fall sports. We're planning accordingly. No one has told us that we can't play, right? Now, we haven't been given the green light, but we haven't been told you can't play, you can't have sports. I mean, we have a soccer match on August 11th, which is an exhibition match. That's about 2 months away, right? And so we have to be thinking positively and optimistically. And so that's one thing I will say is that I do believe we will play. The other thing is what I would do, my advice would be, we can't make this decision in a vacuum. And so, you know, again, there's all kinds of local resources that I think if you're putting together a working group or a task force or a committee, whatever you call it, don't just have athletic people on there. Have people from the health department, from a doctor, a medical professional, a pandemic expert, if there is one in your community, somebody else that has a different viewpoint than just making it about sports. We're lucky at a university we have those type of resources, but I could almost guarantee you that you could find somebody in your local community to be a part of the solution to return to activity, where it's not just you as the coach, you as the athletic director. And again, you're doing it for the right reasons, but a lot of times we have to eliminate the self-serving part of it because people may not trust us. And so as many experts that we can bring to bear to be part of the return that are outside of athletics, I think just helps us have credibility, helps us do it for the right reasons, helps us protect our student athletes, gives our parents the most amount of comfort to return their young, you know, son and daughter to our care. That's what I would say is get as many outside experts as you have access to. And if you can't find them, then go to the next town or go to the next community or go to the county health department or whatever local authorities there might be. I believe those people would be willing to help, because sports is a rallying point. I mean, sports is a positive influence, you know, for our communities, and let's be the rallying point that brings people back together in a positive manner. So I think we can all provide that opportunity.
Ross, I want to thank you for coming on. I know you're busy. That's great insight, great information. And we'll all be watching the Aggies this fall and wishing you good luck. And thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ross.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone, for the opportunity. I appreciate it. Good luck with everything.
Appreciate it.
Take care. Thanks.
Take care.